needed to be great. And yeah, I mean, we did play dumb rugby a lot of the time. I've got to agree with Scott, you know. We just, played stupid rugby.
It sometimes this year it felt like Hull FC were more of a threat when they were 60 metres away from your line than when they were 6 metres away from your line.
But that's been, sort of, but once we got into like the opposition's 30 or something, it was literally like, right, quick, let's play our 5 drives out so we can get to a kick and do something from that. And the kick was always like that daft kick to the centres or wingers, which we tapped back. I mean, why not catch the ball or pass it? Why tap it back? It's going to go to the opposition 50% of the time.
I think that lament there sums up your exasperation with Hull FC's season, and the 50% of the time fits with your mid-table finish.
Exactly.
So let's move on to the sides that did make the playoffs. Sarah's got to talk about the side that she openly supports. Alan?
Well,
do you want to talk about the side that you apparently have become a more open supporter of over the last 12 months?
Allegedly. So yes, the Castleford Tigers finished 5th. And Tim, this is one you got right.
Hey!
So Tim had them 5th. Fans were a bit more optimistic, as they want to be. Had them 4th. I also had them 4th.
Yeah, fans.
Mark and Sarah. Fans, yeah. Mark and Sarah, not so positive, 7th and 8th, respectively. What to say about Cass? It feels like 5th was actually a fair reflection of where they were this year. They didn't really... I don't think anyone was particularly positive about their signings, was it? I mean, it was Jordan Rankin was it. That was it. And obviously losing Gale, I think we knew that, didn't we, at the season preview point. You've got to say, you know, from a mid-season signing point of view, Chase Blair's disappointing. He looked like he actively didn't want to score tries at points. But actually, you have to say, whilst not heralded at all, I thought Rankin actually, considering that they had such issues at varying positions, he actually did a pretty good job for them, and I think he'll probably do the same again next year. And yeah, they've got, you know, I think they've actually done a good deal with the Gale and Richardson thing. To be fair, I think the biggest issue for me for Cass this year was players that they've relied on in previous years, the likes of Truman and McShane, actually been really in and out of form this year. They were very, very inconsistent, and that kind of led to Cass's inconsistency. And, you know, at the end of the day, they only won one more game than they lost. So, yeah, ultimately they kind of scraped their way into the playoffs, I think, and it had more to do with other sides' inability rather than their own ability, perhaps. I don't really have much more to say about my secret team. Anybody else?
Well, Tim got them right.
I'll take that as a no.
Oh, Tim.
Yeah. There we go. Got something right.
They did have injury issues to an extent, but they compounded that themselves by not playing Mitch Clark once it became clear that he wanted to make more money than they were willing to pay him, which seemed like a strange decision to me. The fact that Powell couldn't get it right at who should play fullback, who should play alongside Truman, and even to at times who should play on the wing and who should play in the centre, that they made a lot of problems for themselves in selections in the backs, and they had issues at the up front with some injuries. I just think they were never going to be consistent because of all of that, and they did well to make 5th. Great run sort of in the last third of the season. So yeah, what did their fans have to say? Their actual fans, Alan?
The actual fans. So DG Knight. So David says, meh. We've come to expect so much. that what would have been a fantastic season 5 years ago was just okay. Powell lamented Gale being injured all season, but now he's gone. The lack of creativity is an ongoing concern. Watts has been a consistent performer. I should have mentioned that. He was good this year. And he carried the team at times. Hoping a few more play at his level in 2020 and we see a classy Cass once more. And then Simon Lee says, surprisingly high finish with squad and injuries. Lacked a killer touch to win close games. And listener of the year has been in touch with his audio thoughts. So we'll hear now from Fat Boy Rob.
Hello fellow SLPers, I'm Fat Boy Rob and this is my season review for Yorkshire's #1 team, the mighty Castleford Tigers for 2019, aka the year of the injury, aka how the fuck did we finish 5th. I'll start with the injuries. We lost Over the Hill Gale, Foster and Roberts for the entire season. Jamie Ellis didn't feature until the last 6 weeks and we lost Shenton, Moores and Clarkson for the rest of the year by August. Add to that 4-week plus layoffs for Milo, Matt Cook, Watts, Eden, McShane, Ollie Holmes, Jesse and McMeekin, and we can't be too unhappy with where we finished. The lowlights of the season were losing to Leeds twice, the toothless performances at Wigan and Saints away, and the manner that we went out at the end of the year to a very good Salford team. The highlights were beating Leeds, of course, the comeback wins against Wigan and Huddersfield, hammering FC to make the playoffs, and regaining some pride at Warrington away, as well as the performances of the ladies throughout the season. Not to mention several crowds of over 1,000 as the women's games grew throughout the year. I'm optimistic about 2020. I think Richardson is a good fit and the other signings we have coming in will strengthen the squad. I'm looking forward to going to Toronto, despite the absurdity of having a team from another continent in our domestic league. Lastly, my cast prediction for 2020... the treble, of course. Come on, you rip-roaring motherfucking Fords.
Cheers, Rob. As usual, his unique insights into his...
It's like nobody had an injury before.
Do you remember when he said that Cass won the league when they finished top of the table? But this year he's tried to claim to me on several occasions that they actually finished 4th because they beat Warrington in the first round of the playoffs. But we move on to Warrington, who did finish the table in 4th place, which was below where we all thought. The fans went second. In general, as the listener of the show did. Alan, me and Tim also all went second and Sarah thought the first, and we all thought they would be very much competing for the top honours this season with the squad they've put together. I still can't decide if their season was good or not. Obviously, winning the cup was fantastic. The semi-final was probably the best performance of theirs I saw this year. It was the first game I thought this year that all of their key men played up to their significance within that side, played to their importance. I think it was Chris Hill's best game of the season. I think Blake Austin was fantastic. You know, the wingers were very sharp in the work they did. Ratchford came in, had a good game. And the Wembley win, obviously a great piece of game planning by Steve Price. That was his personal high point of the year, not just for the fact that they won that trophy, but the game plan he was able to come up with to counteract that St Helens side with the lack of Blake Austin, which is the key factor from how he had to approach that game. But the league slide, which had already started by that semi-final win over Hull FC actually, but after that point they wouldn't win another game other than the Wembley final. They fell from 2nd to 4th, and that game the week after the semi-final against Catalan, that was a huge moment in that dive that they went on and off the pitch actually. Of course, a big loss to a poor side, which was also compounded by losing Blake Austin to injury and the whole club getting put under a cloud with events in the stands. I mean, if you look back, I think 5 or 6 a few rounds before, back to round 16 at Anfield, Warrington, they were the only side who looked like they were in the same league as St Helens at that point. When Austin dispatched of Wigan with a great solo try, like he had taken apart many sides, in fact, in the first half of the season. I think we'll all remember the 4-try display he put on at Hull FC. He in that period.
Why is everyone's highlights come against us?
Well, in that period, he
You were shit.
had similarly devastating performances, Sarah. So it wasn't just you against London, Hull KR, and Huddersfield. And I think at that point it had Austin looking like clear best signing candidate, Man of Steel front runner. You know, I've talked about this earlier in the show. He was fantastic in that first 2/3 of the season, really. But by the time he saw the field again after his injury, Warrington were back in the pack. They were one of the also-rans that St Helens had left completely in their wake this season. They were just another side. Try scoring is something I want to talk about. It dried up ridiculously in the second half of the campaign. I had a look at the numbers because I like numbers. 79 tries they scored in the opening 15 rounds. Okay, 79. In the final 14 rounds, they scored 38. Their two wingers probably lost out on being in the international contention, which isn't a good thing for Great Britain because we had no wingers in the end. But Lynham and Charlie between them scored 8 combined tries in that second half of the season. That's ridiculously poor, isn't it? They were going at nearly a try a game between them, better than try a game between them in the first half of the season. But as bad as that spell was, I'm going to finish on Darrell Clarke, and I'm going to say he was a major standout for Wire all year. He fairly cleaned up at their own awards. He went at just less than 100 metres per game, at almost 10 metres per carry, over 30 tackles per game too, playing in the middle of the field. He was their top assist maker in Super League as well for Warrington. So, you know, I would like to finish on saying Darrell Clarke was back to pretty much his best standard, but I think a lot of other people in the Warrington squad were just a bit below their best standards, especially in the last 6 or 8 weeks of the season. We had quite a few fans get in touch with a balance, I think. EFC78JU said, brilliant season winning the Challenge Cup. Lee Whitnell said, great start, shit finish, but with a lovely fat cherry sat atop the shit, glistening in the Wembley sunshine. James just summed up the season for Warrington by saying Challenge Cup, and Jeff Alshot, or Alshot, you'll like that one, Alan. Jeff Alshot also mentioned the Challenge Cup winners his the whole definition of the season. Mike Dodd 22, who's been a great contributor throughout this season. If I'm right, he attended more away games than he ever has before and enjoyed those journeys, even if they became harder to stomach by the end of the year. He said, superb win in the Challenge Cup, but massive drop-off in the league was very disappointing and concerning. If only Matty Blythe could have saved us. And the man who comes next will have loved that final comment there, because it was Tom Eckley who we round it out with. He said, despite a good start to the season, league form and attacking confidence never fully recovered from the Salford defeat at Easter. The decision to sell Morgan Smith with no backup replacement planned was foolish. Ratchford and Cooper were unlucky to not be on the GB tour, in my opinion. The decision to panic recruit Matty Smith instead of Matty Blythe was unforgivable and definitely cost us a grand final. Still, Wembley was a great day. Oh, it's me again, because we're going to talk about Wigan rather than go to the people that were in the grand final who finished third. We're going to talk about Wigan, who finished the table in second. Overall, the listeners predicted that Wigan would finish third at the start of the season. Alan, you had them sat outside the playoffs at 6, and for so long of the season, it felt like you might be right. I went 4th, Sarah went 3rd, and Tim went 3rd. So we all thought they'd do worse than they did, or maybe we all thought someone else would do better than someone else did. I don't know. But I saw every minute of every game Wigan played this year. That's the first time I've done that, and probably the last time I'll get to do that as well. And frankly, this wasn't a grand final team, so it wasn't too sad for me, even though I would want them to have won the grand final. It wasn't too sad for me that this side fell a week short, because they didn't feel like they deserved it. I mean, I was amazed, really, we got as far as we did after the midpoint of the season. The loss in Barcelona in round 15, I mean, Adrian Lamb that night for me was definitely close to deserving the chop. I mean, credit to him, he worked the team through a ridiculously turbulent first half of the year. So much off-field crap happened, lots of it outside of his remit or control. So maybe he got extra credit in the bank for that, and I'm glad that he did, because he did turn it around. I think the week after that Barcelona shambles, the effort was very good against Wyatt at Magic Weekend. plus the reaction that came next from the club to the next and final off-field demeanour of the season, which was Tauli Matautai's drunk driving. I think that showed me then that Lamb maybe had the pieces in place to do a better job for the back end of the year. Some of the newer players were more tuned into the side, Zach Hardacre being key to that, and then some of the younger players were showing the experience once what playing for Wigan should mean. I think Wigan started the season with a little bit of a we've achieved everything sense. There wasn't the urgency and the intensity